They told you if you wanted love, you had to earn it. So you tried. You showed up. You texted first. You planned the dates. You gave more than you got, all in the hope that one day she would choose you. But something strange kept happening, didn't it? The more effort you gave, the faster she pulled away. It didn't matter how kind you were. It didn't matter how consistent. It didn't even matter if you were the best version of yourself. Because in her eyes, you became too easy, too available, too predictable. And here's the hidden truth no one told you. What's easily gained is rarely deeply valued. Pause on that for a second. Think about anything in life. If you get it instantly, if it costs you nothing, how long does it really stay with you? Not long. And that same law applies in relationships. Now let's bring in Machiavelli. Machiavelli never wrote about romance. He wrote about power, about control, about influence. But his words echo through the quiet pain of men who chase too hard. He said, "It is far safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But don't misunderstand this. Fear here doesn't mean aggression. It doesn't mean intimidation. It means presence. The kind of presence that commands attention without ever needing to beg for it. And that's the shift. Most men lose their edge the moment they start seeking validation instead of direction. The moment they start orbiting her instead of building a world she actually wants to be a part of. Women are not drawn to desperation. They're drawn to gravity. They're drawn to silence. They're drawn to restraint. They're drawn to the man who can look her in the eye and say, "I want you here, but I will never need you to complete me." That's not arrogance. That's sovereignty. Let's break this down with a story. Imagine two men. The first one meets a woman he really likes. He thinks, if I just give her everything, if I just show her how kind and available I am, she'll see my worth. So he texts first every morning. He drops his plans just to see her. He cancels on friends. He's always available. And at first she smiles, maybe even appreciates the effort. But soon, something shifts. She doesn't feel excited anymore. His presence feels too predictable, too common. Now the second man, he meets the same kind of woman. He's interested, yes, but he doesn't abandon his life. He still goes to the gym. He still spends time building his career, working on his passions, living his mission. When he texts her, it's not out of desperation, it's out of intention. When he makes plans, he doesn't cancel his entire world for her. He invites her into his world. Which man do you think she'll lean into? Which one will she actually wonder about? The answer is obvious, because availability isn't strength. Scarcity is. And what is scarce becomes valuable. So here's the paradox. The more you try to earn her love by giving, by proving, by chasing, the less she values you. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you reclaim your center, the moment you anchor into your own mission, that's when she starts to lean in. Attraction isn't built in chasing, it's built in restraint. Let me ask you a question that may sting a little. When was the last time you made a woman earn your time? Not in a manipulative way, not by playing games, but truly. When was the last time you treated your time as sacred, as valuable, as something that can't just be handed out freely? Because here's the silent truth women feel, even if they never say it out loud. A man who gives away all his time has nothing sacred left. No boundaries, no standards, no kingdom. And without a kingdom, there is nothing for her to admire, nothing for her to respect, nothing for her to be drawn into. Machiavelli warned rulers that constant exposure breeds contempt, and it's the same in dating. A man who is always present loses the art of influence. So what's the solution? You let her feel your absence, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to remind her that your attention is earned, not owed. When you stop showing up instantly every time she calls, she begins to wonder. When you don't reply in seconds, she starts to question, and in that space, the desire begins to grow. You don't need to withdraw love, you just need to invest it wisely. Into your body, into your mission, into your growth, into your craft. Because when your time becomes valuable to you, it becomes valuable to her. And here's the real transformation. You stop hoping she'll fill a void in your life. Instead, you start offering her a window into a life that's already full. And in that subtle shift, everything changes. She texts first. She shows up with more effort. She begins to pursue you, not because you played games, but because you finally stopped playing yourself. So let me leave you with this challenge for today. If she had to earn your time the way you earn your own, would she qualify? Sit with that, because that question alone will change how you show up, not just with women, but in life. This is the paradox of attraction. The moment you stop chasing is the moment she begins to wonder why you're so hard to catch. And when she begins to wonder, she begins to value. So from this moment forward, become the man whose time must be earned. Not through manipulation, but through presence, through purpose, through power. Because the man who builds himself first never has to beg to be chosen. He simply waits while the right woman chooses to follow. There's something more dangerous than rejection, something more silent than betrayal, something more powerful than a yes, or even a no. It's indifference. And do you know when indifference begins? The moment she thinks she already knows everything about you. Because mystery isn't just attractive, mystery is essential. Think about it. Every story that grips you, every book you can't put down, every movie that lingers in your mind, it's not because you knew exactly what would happen. It's because you didn't. It's the tension between what's revealed and what's still hidden. That's what keeps you turning the page. That's what keeps your heart racing. And attraction works the exact same way. Let me ask you, think of the characters you've never forgotten. The anti-hero in your favorite show, the quiet leader in that film who barely spoke but somehow stole every scene, the mysterious figure who made you lean in without even trying. Why did they have that effect on you? Because they didn't reveal everything in the first act. They made you wonder. They made you chase meaning. They left space for discovery. And here's the tragedy. Most men sabotage themselves by destroying their own mystery. Here's how it happens. They meet a woman they're interested in. They want her to see they're trustworthy. They want to prove they're real, they're genuine, they're different. So they unload everything. Their past, their fears, their heartbreaks, their dreams, their wounds, all in the first few conversations. And what happens? They think they're being transparent. They think they're building intimacy. But what they've actually done is hand her the final chapter before the story even began. And when a story ends too soon, the reader puts the book down. Now let's hear Machiavelli whisper through history. A man who reveals all his intentions becomes predictable. And the predictable man is easy to defeat. That wasn't just political advice, it's universal. In dating, predictability is the death of desire. Because if she already knows every thought you'll think, every move you'll make, every emotion you'll spill, why would she lean in? There's no tension, no curiosity, no reason to explore. Now let's make this practical with a simple comparison. Imagine two men. The first wears his heart on his sleeve. He shares every scar like a badge of honor. He over-explains, over-analyzes, overshares. Every detail of his past, every insecurity, every plan, dumped on the table like a diary entry. He wants connection so badly that he forgets to protect his own soul. He's like a documentary with no mystery, informative, maybe even admirable, but forgettable. Now the second man, he moves differently. He's warm, yes. He's present, yes. But he's measured. He shares what matters, but not everything at once. He listens more than he speaks. He allows silence to exist without rushing to fill it. He doesn't try to impress her with endless words. He lets her lean in. He lets her wonder. And she leaves the conversation not knowing everything, but wanting to. That's the man she thinks about. That's the man she texts later, just to uncover a little more. That's the man who becomes unforgettable. So let's carve this into your mind. Desire is born in discovery, and discovery can't exist if there's nothing left to uncover. In a world where everyone overshares, where men post their emotions like a public diary, where people spill every thought online, your privacy becomes power. And here's where Machiavelli's wisdom sharpens like a blade. He believed that the more hidden a man's intent, the more powerful his influence. Not because he was dishonest, but because he was unreadable. Unreadable doesn't mean confusing. Unreadable means captivating. It means she can't predict every move. It means she has to invest more energy to understand you. It means she has to earn access layer by layer. And that's what makes her stay. Now let me ask you directly, why do you share so quickly? Is it really because you're being open? Or is it because you're afraid? Afraid that if you don't impress her now, you'll lose her. Afraid that if you don't spill your soul instantly, she won't see your depth. Afraid that if you don't reveal everything, she won't choose you. That fear is loud, it's obvious, and it makes your presence feel desperate. But silence is powerful. Stillness is rare. The man who holds back, the man who reveals himself slowly, the man who lets her earn each layer, he becomes unforgettable. Because every new truth he shares feels like a gift, like a reward, like a doorway into something sacred. That is real intimacy. Not forced closeness, but earned closeness. So how do you live this truth? You stop offering your soul on the first night. You stop updating her every hour like a newsfeed. You stop explaining every mood and justifying every silence, not because you're hiding something, but because you're whole. Whole enough to let someone walk beside you without needing them to fix you. Whole enough to share selectively, not desperately. Whole enough to allow mystery to breathe. You don't speak to fill silence. You let silence speak for you. Because in a world drowning in noise, the man who speaks with purpose becomes magnetic. So remember this, the more she has to wonder, the more she wants to know. The more she has to earn, the more she values. As Machiavelli might say, the wise man hides his intent not to deceive, but to remain ungoverned. Let her feel like she's unlocking a vault, not scrolling through a diary, because the man who is mysterious isn't distant, he's unforgettable. Power isn't in the loudest voice, it isn't in the wildest gesture, it isn't even in the boldest words. Power lives in calm, because when a man loses control of himself, he loses control of everything. Picture this, two men walk into the same storm. The wind howls, the rain pounds, the world shakes. The first man panics. He shouts at the storm. He waves his arms, runs in circles, drowns in his own fear. The second man, he walks slowly, deliberately. He plants his feet firmly, lets the rain strike his face, but his eyes never waver. Which man feels bigger? Which man feels unshakable? Which man do others instinctively follow? It's always the calm one. And Machiavelli knew this. He warned leaders that the quickest way to lose authority was to lose composure. Why? Because panic exposes weakness, and weakness invites attack. Now transfer that truth into attraction. When you chase after her texts with frantic replies, when you explode in jealousy at the thought of her attention drifting, when you let your mood rise and fall based on her approval, you've surrendered control. And the moment you surrender control, you lose respect. But here's the beauty. Calm doesn't mean cold. Calm doesn't mean detached. Calm means centered. Calm means you don't hand your emotions over to chance. Calm means your energy is governed by you, not by her. And that is magnetic. Let's bring this closer to reality. Imagine a woman testing you. And yes, tests are real. Not always malicious, sometimes unconscious. But women test because they want to feel the strength of the man they're with. So she throws a sharp comment. Maybe she teases you. Maybe she provokes you. Maybe she challenges your opinion. Now watch the ordinary man. He crumbles. He gets defensive. He argues to prove he's right. His emotions spill everywhere, like water from a broken glass. And in that moment, she knows. She knows he can't even handle a sentence from her lips. So how could he handle the weight of her life? Now watch the man of calm. He smiles. Not a forced smile, not arrogance, a grounded smile. He doesn't rush to explain himself. He doesn't compete with her energy. He lets silence breathe. He speaks with clarity, not speed. He answers with measured confidence. And suddenly, the test has no power because nothing shakes him. That's when respect takes root. That's when desire deepens. That's when she feels safe. Not because you dominate her, but because you master yourself. Let's tie this back to Machiavelli. He said, the one who conquers himself is greater than the one who conquers a city. That is not just politics. That is life. Because when you master your own emotions, your anger, your jealousy, your anxiety, your fear, you become untouchable. And untouchable men are unforgettable. Now let's be brutally honest. Why do most men fail here? Because they mistake calm for weakness. They think if they don't explode, if they don't react, if they don't prove themselves instantly, they'll look passive. But the truth? The man who needs to explode is weak. The man who needs to prove himself instantly is insecure. The man who needs to react is controlled, not in control. Calm is not weakness. Calm is containment of power. Think of a lion. The lion doesn't roar at every bird that flies by. He doesn't chase every sound in the grass. He moves only when he must. And when he does, everything trembles. That's calm. That's control. That's power. Now here's something to carve into your mind. A woman doesn't truly admire the man who controls her. She admires the man who controls himself. Because if you can't rule your own emotions, your own habits, your own impulses, how can you rule anything else? She doesn't want a man who collapses at the first sign of stress. She doesn't want a man who reacts like a boy. She wants a man whose presence is steady, no matter the storm. That steadiness is what makes her trust you. That trust is what makes her surrender to you. But let's make this practical. How do you cultivate calm? 3 things. First, control your breath. Your breath is the steering wheel of your emotions. Fast breath, fast panic. Slow breath, slow power. In moments of stress, pause. Inhale deeply, exhale slower. It resets your state instantly. Second, master silence. Don't rush to fill every gap. Silence unsettles the ungrounded. But for the calm man, silence is a weapon. Use it. Let her lean into your stillness. Third, detach your worth from outcomes when your entire sense of self depends on her response, her text, her attention, her approval. You'll always be fragile, but when your worth is rooted in yourself, her actions can't shake you. That's how calm becomes natural. So remember, every storm is an opportunity. Every test is a stage. Every challenge is a mirror. Will you be the man who reacts like a boy or the man who stands like a mountain? Because in the end, calm isn't just attractive. Calm is unforgettable, and Machiavelli's voice still echoes. The man who rules himself can never be ruled by another. Be that man. Respect. Every man wants it. Few men understand it. And even fewer know how to command it without asking, without forcing, without begging. But here's the truth. If you ask for respect, you've already lost it. If you demand respect, it slips through your fingers. Real respect is not taken by noise. It's earned in silence. Think about it. A king doesn't walk into his court and shout, "Respect me, respect me." Number his very presence creates respect. The way he carries himself, the way he speaks or chooses not to speak, the way he leads without explaining that he's the leader. And women are no different. They don't respect the man who tries to convince them of his worth. They respect the man who embodies his worth. Let's get brutally clear here. If you're chasing validation, if you're over-explaining yourself, if you're always trying to prove that you're the good guy, you've already handed your power away. Because when you need respect, you're saying, "I don't have it inside, please give it to me." But when you command respect, your entire energy shifts. You're no longer a beggar at the gates of approval. You're the man who knows the gates open for him anyway. Now, how do you do this? How do you command respect without forcing it? It comes down to 3 timeless principles. 1, respect yourself first. Sounds simple, but it's the foundation. If you allow disrespect in your own life, from friends, from work, from yourself, you're training the world and women to treat you the same way. When you speak poorly about yourself, when you accept less than you deserve, when you betray your own word, you send one message: I am not worth respect. But when you guard your standards, when you honor your commitments to yourself, when you speak with strength instead of self-deprecation, respect becomes automatic. Second, hold boundaries without explaining. Weak men over-explain. They give long speeches about why they said no, They drown in excuses to justify their decisions. Strong men? They simply say no, not with cruelty, not with arrogance, but with finality. A boundary doesn't need a 10-minute presentation. A boundary is a line, and the power of that line is that it exists, calmly, firmly, unshakably. When a woman tests that line, and you hold it without debate, respect blooms instantly. Third, let actions speak louder than words. Anyone can say, "I'm confident." Anyone can say, "I'm a leader." Anyone can say, "I know my worth." But real power isn't declared, it's demonstrated. When you lead in your life, when you handle pressure with calm, when you treat yourself and others with integrity, she sees it, and that silent display of power earns more respect than 1,000 speeches. Now let's get into the psychology. Why does this work? Because women, like all people, read energy more than words. You can say you're confident, but if your body trembles, if your eyes dart, if your voice cracks, she feels the truth. You can say you deserve respect, but if you fold under pressure, if you tolerate disrespect, if you explain yourself endlessly, she sees the truth. Commanding respect isn't about performance, it's about alignment. When your words, your actions, and your energy all point to the same strength, respect is inevitable. Let's look at the opposite for a moment. The man who begs, the man who convinces, the man who performs for approval. He buys flowers not out of love, but out of desperation. He agrees to everything not out of kindness, but out of fear. He explains himself over and over, thinking if he talks enough, she'll finally get him. But all she gets is this: he doesn't respect himself. So how can she? Machiavelli understood this deeply. He wrote that rulers must balance being loved and being feared, but above all, they must avoid being disrespected. Why? Because once respect is gone, power collapses. And it's the same with attraction. A woman might laugh with you. She might even flirt with you. But if she doesn't respect you, she will never fully desire you. Respect is the root. Desire is the flower. No root, no flower. Now you might ask, does this mean I need to be cold? Does this mean I can't be kind? Does this mean I have to play games? True respect comes from balance. You can be kind without being weak. You can be generous without being a pushover. You can be warm without being spineless. The key is that your kindness comes from choice, not from need. When you help because you want to, not because you're terrified she'll leave if you don't. When you give because you choose to, not because you're trying to purchase her affection. That difference is everything. So let's put this into a picture. Imagine a woman says to you with a smirk, "Why are you so quiet? Do you even know what you're doing here?" Now an insecure man scrambles. He over-explains. He laughs nervously. He tries to perform, to win back ground. But a man who commands respect, he meets her eyes. He lets a small smile touch his lips, and he simply says, "You'll figure it out." No debate, no desperation, no begging, just calm authority. And in that moment, respect rises. Here's the lesson. Respect is not requested. Respect is not negotiated. Respect is not begged for. Respect is lived. Respect is embodied. Respect is commanded. And when you command respect, she doesn't just look at you. She looks up to you. Not because you forced her to, not because you begged her to, but because her instincts whisper, "This is a man I cannot ignore." Let me ask you something. When was the last time you watched a movie where you knew every single thing that was going to happen? Did you enjoy it? Of course not. Predictability kills excitement. And in relationships, in attraction, in the game of desire, predictability is poison. Because here's the truth. If she can read you like an open book, if she knows your every move before you make it, if she can predict your reactions, your texts, your patterns, she stops feeling the spark. And when the spark dies, desire dies with it. Think about it. The men women crave are not robots. They're not the always available, always saying yes, always doing the same thing kind of men. The men women crave are wrapped in a layer of mystery, not because they're playing fake games, but because their lives are bigger than her imagination. Let's get real here. If you're the guy who texts her good morning every single day at the same time, if you're the guy who says yes to every invitation, no matter what, if you're the guy whose moods, routines, and responses are always predictable, you might feel like you're being consistent, but to her, you're just another page in a book she already finished, and no woman wants to reread the same story twice. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to be unreliable. I'm not telling you to flake, to disappear, or to play childish games. Mystery is not about manipulation. It's about depth. It's about unpredictability born from a life that's full, a life that doesn't orbit entirely around her. Here's the secret. When you're mysterious, you don't even have to try, because mystery comes naturally when your world is larger than hers. If you have passions, if you're chasing goals, if you're building, exploring, living, she will always wonder, what's he up to when he's not with me? And that question, that wondering, is the fuel of attraction. Let's break this down into practical steps. 1. Don't overexpose yourself. Think of your attention like sunlight. Too much, too constantly, and it burns out the growth. But the right balance, it makes things bloom. When you flood her with every detail of your day, when you answer every text within seconds, when you pour your entire soul out without restraint, you kill the mystery. Instead, share selectively. Let her earn the deeper layers of you. Show her glimpses, not the whole movie. 2. Be unpredictable in small, powerful ways. If she thinks she knows exactly how you'll act, surprise her. If she expects dinner at the same spot every week, switch it up. If she thinks you'll always chase, pull back and let her come to you. It's not about being inconsistent, it's about being alive, because life itself is unpredictable. And when you mirror that, she feels excitement. 3. Keep a life outside of her. This is the foundation. If your whole world revolves around her, she becomes bored. But if she knows you're busy building, if she sees that you're working on your craft, your vision, your empire, if she feels that she's part of your life but not the center of it, she'll lean in harder, because deep down, every woman craves the man who cannot be fully contained. Let's use an example. Imagine 2 men. Man A, he texts her nonstop. He tells her every detail of his day. He repeats the same routines over and over. She knows him inside out within weeks. Man B, he gives her attention, yes. He makes her feel seen. But sometimes he disappears into his work, his projects, his passions. He tells her stories she didn't expect. He shows sides of himself she didn't see coming. Which one do you think she dreams about at night? The answer's obvious. Now let's connect this to Machiavelli. Machiavelli taught that power thrives in perception, that rulers must always keep others guessing, never fully revealing their intentions, never showing all their cards. Why? Because predictability breeds weakness, and unpredictability keeps others cautious, intrigued, and invested. The same law applies in attraction. When she can't quite figure you out, when she can't fully predict your next move, when she feels there's always more to discover, you become magnetic. Here's another way to think about it. Predictable men are like fast food, easy, available, the same every time, satisfying for a moment, but forgettable. Mysterious men are like fine wine, complex, layered, something you savor slowly, something that leaves you wondering after every taste, what else is hidden here? Now I need to say this again, because many men misunderstand this. Mystery is not about being deceptive. It's not about lying. It's not about pretending. True mystery comes from authenticity. It comes from living a life so full, so rich, so unpredictable, that no single person can ever fully capture it. That's the kind of mystery that women can't resist. So here's your challenge. Stop being predictable. Stop being the man whose every move is already mapped out. Stop living like a script that she's already read. Instead, be the man who surprises her. Be the man whose life is bigger than her imagination. Be the man who leaves her wondering, what's next? Who is he really? And how can I get closer to him? Because when she's asking those questions, you've already won. Let me tell you a secret most men never learn. It's not the loudest man who wins. It's not the man with the flashiest car, the biggest muscles, or the boldest words. It's the man who can control himself. The man who, no matter what storm is raging around him, remains centered, unshaken, unbroken. Because here's the truth. Emotions are the battleground of attraction. If you can't control your emotions, she will control them for you. If you can't master your reactions, she will learn how to push every one of your buttons. And once she knows she can control your emotions, the game is already over. Think about it. How many men have destroyed a relationship because of jealousy? Because they couldn't handle seeing her talk to another guy? Because they exploded at the smallest sign of rejection? How many men have lost everything because they couldn't keep their anger in check? Because they argued, shouted, begged, or broke down in front of her? Attraction dies the moment she realizes she has emotional power over you. But when you flip the script, when you stay calm, composed, unshaken, something incredible happens. She starts to look at you differently. She starts to trust you. She starts to feel safe in your presence. And most importantly, she respects you. Respect is the soil where attraction grows. Here's where Machiavelli comes in. Machiavelli wrote that rulers must appear calm and decisive even in chaos. Why? Because panic breeds weakness, but calmness projects strength. He understood that control is not about the world around you. It's about the world inside you. And in relationships, it's exactly the same. A man who controls his emotions is a man who controls the frame. And the man who controls the frame controls the relationship. Let's break this down into practical steps. 1. Don't react immediately. When something happens that stirs your emotions, pause, count to 10. Breathe. Ask yourself, what outcome do I want here? Most men ruin everything in the first 10 seconds of reacting. But if you can master that pause, you gain the upper hand. 2. Master your jealousy. Jealousy is natural, but letting jealousy control you is weakness. If she's talking to another guy, don't panic, don't explode, don't start interrogating. Instead, remain composed. Show her with your energy that you are secure, confident, and unbothered. That calmness alone separates you from 99% of men. 3. Use silence as a weapon. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to argue every point. You don't have to explain yourself endlessly. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response. When you go silent instead of reacting emotionally, she feels it, she respects it, and she realizes she can't pull you into her storms. 4. Build inner strength daily. Emotional control is not built in the moment, it's built in training. Discipline yourself. Work out, meditate, journal, push yourself through discomfort. Every time you resist the urge to react emotionally in your daily life, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. So when the real tests come, you are ready. Now let's imagine two men again. Man A, she tests him. She ignores his text for a few hours. She teases him, tries to provoke him. He explodes. He argues. He begs. He shows her that she controls him emotionally. Man B, she does the same thing, but he doesn't react. He stays calm. He gives her space. And when he does speak, his words are measured, composed, strong. Who do you think she respects? Who do you think she desires? The answer is obvious. And here's something most men don't want to hear. Attraction is not about her beauty. It's not about her validation. It's not about how much she gives you. It's about how much control you have over yourself. Because the man who can control his emotions can control his world. And the man who controls his world controls the game of attraction. Now listen carefully. Emotional control does not mean you become a cold robot. It does not mean you feel nothing. It does not mean you never express yourself. It means you choose when and how to express. It means your emotions serve you instead of you serving them. It means you lead with strength instead of weakness. That balance between calm strength and controlled vulnerability is what makes you irresistible. So here's your final challenge. The next time you feel jealousy rising, breathe. The next time anger burns inside you, pause. The next time fear creeps in, stand tall. Prove to yourself that your emotions are yours and yours alone. Because when you master yourself, you master everything. And when she looks at you and realizes she cannot shake you, cannot break you, cannot control you, that's when she surrenders to you. That is the silent weapon of power. That is the final law of attraction. That is the essence of becoming the man she begs for.